All right, well, welcome to another edition of our National Work and Family Month workshop presentation at the University of Kentucky, offered by the Office of Work Life. Today, we will be talking about establishing priorities and building focus. And our speaker today is actually Kelly May with the Cooperative Extension Service. And I'm going to turn it over to Kelly. She can tell you all about her role and what she does, and then lead us through our presentation today. Thank you for being with us, Kelly.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here, and I am not the name on the screen. I'm sorry for the change. I did want to give a hello from Nicole. She wishes she could be here today doing this. Unfortunately, she was not feeling well, and I'm happy to step in and help. We work together, and we are for Cooperative Extension. We are the Family Finance and Resource Management team. So we actually worked on this curriculum together. And I'm happy to present this unit because it's one of my favorites. We're going to talk about establishing priorities and building focus. So thank you all for joining today. We're so glad you're here, and we will get started. We've got a few objectives. Today, we hope you'll learn to use some different tools to prioritize tasks, including the Eisenhower matrix. We're going to explain some methods for building and maintaining focus, which is hard to do in today's world. We're going to practice some task management techniques, and we're going to construct some goal statements. We must use time as a tool, not as a couch. John F. Kennedy said that, and what he means by that is we need to stop seeing time as something passive, that it just rolls by and happens without us. If we use it actively, it can be a tool to help us reach our goals. So let's use our time in the best way we can. And one of those ways is to prioritize. And Dwight D. Eisenhower was our 34th president in the United States. And he was an important decision maker during World War II. And you can imagine the number and volume and importance of the kinds of decisions he would have had to make during a World War II scenario. So he had to first make decisions rapid fire and make sure they were good decisions. So the story is that he came up with this matrix to help him make decisions. So this is something you could use in your work or home life to make decisions. Of course, they won't be as urgent, hopefully, as wartime decisions, but we can rank things by both urgency and importance the way he did. So first, you can look at how important something is and how urgent something is. And so we all know that those aren't the same thing, right? So if it's urgent, it needs to be done now. But if it's important, it needs to be done in the order of things because of like you need to prioritize it because of what the item is. And so in the first category is the things we want to do now or do first. And so if it's both urgent and important, these are things that are crises, they're problems, they're deadlines, they're things we have to get done. Anything that shows up in that box is something you need to do right away and prioritize those first. The other green box on the screen is those things that are both important but not urgent. So those are things we need to do. We have to do them because they're important, but we can wait till later. So those are opportunities. Those are things to help us with our own progress. These are high value things, or maybe they're long term. They're things that we know need to be done, but they can be put off for a little bit. Now, the bottom two boxes are interesting. So the yellow box ends up being things we can delegate. These are things that are urgent, but not important. So maybe they have to be done now, but it doesn't have to be us that does them. So these are maintenance things and routine tasks that maybe we can get others to help us with. And if you feel like putting something in the chat that would fall into one of these categories for you, often it's easy to think of things at home, like, are there any chores in your house that you can delegate to somebody else? If you have more than just you in your household, that could be a way to get some help with things you need to have done. And then finally, the last box is the red box. And these are things we can stop doing. So these are not urgent and not important. And that doesn't mean they're not something we want to do, right? So sometimes we end up doing those things that aren't things we have to do, that maybe we just enjoy doing. They're trivial things, and they might be getting in the way of the things we have to get done. So when times are not so hectic, we can do those things ourselves, but sometimes we have to let those things go so that we're not clogging up our schedule with things that fall into this category. And so that can help us prioritize. One last thing I want to say about this slide is the way you prioritize may be different when you're at work than it is when you're at home. And so the example I like to give is a work phone call. Um, Now, some jobs are different, but for most of our jobs, if we get a work phone call and it's during our off time, hopefully we're allowed to have some flexibility to wait until we're back on the clock again to take that call. So depending on what the call is and who it's from, it may fall in different categories on this scale when you're at home versus when you're at work. The next couple of slides, we talk about building focus. So that was another goal or objective for today. And one of the ways you can work on focus is to find your flow. And there was a researcher called Csikszentmihalyi who wrote a book called Flow. And he talked about that's that state where you're so engrossed in a task that you lose track of time. So you're in it, you're in that moment, you're in that zone, and it really feels good. You're getting a lot of work done. I hope you all have experienced that at some point because it's a marvelous feeling. And you feel super productive when it does happen. And so this researcher found that you can actually set up things around you to encourage that flow state to happen. And so the first thing you need to do, and nobody wants to hear this, is quit multitasking. So we all are asked to do lots of things, and a lot of times we're asked to do lots of things all at once. But research shows that multitasking keeps our brains from deeply engaging on any one topic. So we might be checking a lot of things off the list, but we're not deeply focusing on one thing at a time. And so it can be good to set aside other things and focus on one thing. The second thing we can do is play to your strengths. Now, I don't mean that it should be easy necessarily. It shouldn't be too hard. If it's too hard, we'll want to quit. It won't be a good flow state. So it should be challenging, but still achievable. And so when you do both of these things at once, that's how this state happens and you can get more done. Um, to make it play to your strengths, for example, if you were somebody who likes to organize, maybe you can start by outlining your process because that gets your organizing brain going and you can really dive into the project after you complete that. If you are somebody who really enjoys socializing, sometimes we have to do projects that are solo, and we can maybe schedule a brainstorming call or something to get that socializing engagement before you start so that you're in the right frame of mind to work on your project when you get to the part that's solo work. Another tool that you can use is some techniques to control your time and how your time is spent. So there's three different options here. You can use any of these you like. The first one is the 1 minute rule, and that is anything that takes a minute or less, go ahead and do it and get it done. So don't put off the thing, right? So we've all flagged our emails and said we'll come back to it later. But if it's something you can do in less than a minute, go ahead and do it. You're saving the time of putting on the flag, going back and looking at the flag and remembering to do it. You can get it done quicker. The 5 minute rule is to set aside 5 minutes at the end of every hour to work on some larger task. So you can kind of bite size the big thing that is looming that you need to get done by doing it just 5 minutes at a time. So you can spend your hour working on 55 minutes of your hour working on something else, and then that last 5 minutes work on your larger task. The third option I'll share is called the Pomodoro method, and that is to set a timer. So this is for working on a large project, to set a 25-minute timer to work on it, and then a 5-minute break. And you do that 4 times in a row, and then you take a longer break. So it's kind of like you can spend half your day working on something, but you schedule in break time so you don't burn out. And this allows you both focus and a time to decompress for shorter, for 5 minutes at a time for a shorter break, and then for one longer break, which would be probably like your lunch period or your dinner break, depending on what time of day you work. Another couple of things to remember are ways to minimize distractions. Again, with that focus and all the things around us that are trying to claim our attention, right? So the first thing you can do is save your schedule. And what I mean by that is that you can block time. So you can block chunks of time to do specific tasks and then stick to that schedule. So maybe you need a few hours to check email every day. Maybe there's some task that you have to do daily that you can set a period of time to do that. And maybe there are days where we have so many meetings, it's hard to get anything done. I know we've all experienced that before. So it can be good to set a meeting free zone. So maybe there's a day where we don't do meetings, if at all possible. That's not always possible. But if it is, try to do that. A day where we can do that kind of brain work, where we don't have to jump from this call to this meeting, to that phone call. And once you have those time blocks open, protect that so that it doesn't get hijacked or taken away from you. And a lot of times, we might get asked to add a meeting and somebody will say, what about maybe 1 to 2? And maybe you don't have anything on your calendar from 1 to 2, but you have things, every other block of the day. If that's your only free time, that may be time that you need to get something else done. And that is time that you're busy. So even though it's not a meeting on your calendar, there are things you need to work on, and you are allowed to schedule that time for yourself. So just keep that in mind as you receive requests, and you want to be available for others and to be a good team player. But it's important to set time for yourself too, so that you have time to complete the projects you are required to complete. Secondly, I want to mention emails, because we all get them. If you're like me, you get a lot of them. And we can need to sometimes manage or organize those. And the thing to remember is it can wait. We have gotten as a society into the habit of being on or being available all the time, 24 hours a day. And it's really hard, again, to set that focus time if we're being distracted every time something dings, every time we hear the beep that an email is coming in. And so we need to check our email. We need to be accessible, but maybe we need to do it at certain times of day. So it's okay to block time to do that, and to have time where we're going to turn that message, that ding, off, so that we can get some focus time in between. So make sure you're available, you are checking your email, but do it at specific times. And so again, intentionality is part of what we're getting at here. We want to be aware of what we're spending our time doing, and make the times that we do those actions very intentional. And finally, with the social sabotage, is very much the same thing. This could be social media that distracts you on your phone. It could be texting. It could be in-person socializing, so that time at the water cooler. And it could just be meeting others, which we may need that social time to be able to function good and get our things done. So I'm not saying those things aren't important. They are, but they have their time and their place, and we need to be intentional about it. So set times to do those things and have a time limit so it doesn't take over your day. And, if it's socializing time, maybe you can set up a coffee outing or a lunch meeting, or a chance to intentionally build that into your schedule so it doesn't hijack your day. Next, we have a couple tips for managing your tasks. So again, all of these are different options. I'm not suggesting that everybody do all of them all at once, but you can pick and choose the tools that work for you. And so on the screen here, we have 4 tools for managing tasks. And the first one is to track your tasks. And so I don't know if we have any list makers on the call today, but I am a list maker. It feels good to check things off my list. It having a list helps me remember. Not everybody's like that. So if that doesn't work for you, you don't have to use this one. But it can be done any way that works for you. So it could be done on paper with a notepad, or it can be done in the notepad on your phone. I see that Kimberly in our chat loves lists. Feel free to share if you have a technique or a tip that works for you. If there's an app that you enjoy, that can be helpful. Just there's lots of ways to do this. Some people like having a planner or a calendar, whether it's on your phone digitally or whether it's a big desk calendar or a little notebook, whatever works for you. If there's a way to track it, that can help you get that sense of accomplishment for doing things done. Another method is to deconstruct. And so if you've ever heard of the snowball method, when we talk about finances and money and paying off debt, sometimes we talk about the snowball method where you kind of start small and pay something off and then get to the next thing and pay it off. Well, you can do the same thing with your to-do list. You can pick the smallest project to get it over with, get it out of the way, and get those smaller things off your plate so then you have more focus time to tackle those bigger projects. So that is one way that you can do that. Also, you can break things into parts so that you're able to manage it. And so once you break it into a smaller task, you can take care of that. So if you deconstruct your project, maybe you can break it down into 4 or 5 things instead of one thing and work on one thing at a time until you get all 5 things done. The next one, thank you for sharing an app that you enjoy. I appreciate that. I'm not going to recommend any particular apps, but you all are welcome to share things that you've had some success with. You can batch your items, so you can group similar tasks into chunks of time. So this is very good with working with some of these other things I just got done talking about. So maybe those kind of things that snag your attention, like checking your email, or maybe you've got several phone calls to return and you can do those all in one block of time. Make that your phone time, or maybe it's filing. You've got some paperwork you need to file. And instead of filing one thing now while you're doing something else, maybe we set aside time and do all that filing at once. So that is what batching is. And then finally, we've got targeting, which is focusing on things that use your skills. So again, kind of looking for that flow state. So projects that play into your talents. Now, we don't always get to pick and choose. Sometimes we all have to do things we don't enjoy, and we just have to get those done. But sometimes you can focus on the part of that project that you like, and that'll help you get through getting it completed. Lastly, I want to talk about goals. And I'm actually getting done a little bit quicker than I thought I would. So that's good. We'll have time for questions if anybody has any. So as we talk about goal setting, I know in extension all the time we talk about SMART goals. And so that's the acronym you see on the screen here. So we do best with goals that are specific. If it's not specific, it's too hard to complete. If it's measurable, we can account for it. We know when it's done because we can measure the increments of how done it is. So when it's specific and measurable, you can know exactly what it is and how long it takes to do, and you can break that down into an amount of time so that you see how much you have left to do. If it's achievable, it is something you can accomplish. So again, that, it's fine if it's challenging, but it has to be something you are able to reasonably accomplish so that you can have that success at the end. We don't want to be left feeling like we cannot get done what we have to get done. SMART goals are relevant, so they are things that we need to do now. So thinking back to that Eisenhower matrix, there are things that are either important or urgent or both, and their time. So we know how long, again, part of time ties into measurable. We know how long it takes and we can figure out how long it will take if we're using these other tools such as deconstructing or batching, that we know how long it will take to do all the parts to complete this. The 5 P's of productive goals are to think positively. So frame your task or your goal that you're setting yourself in a positive light. So maybe I'll say my goal today is to be productive rather than to stop doing something. So the negative would be saying, I want to stop being lazy, or I want to stop putting off whatever this is. In one of our other units, we talk about eating the frog. So the ugly task or the hard task or the thing that we just don't want to do, sometimes we can, um, just go ahead and get that over with so it's out of the way and we don't have that weighing on us anymore. So be positive and frame it in a positive way when you think about the goals that you need to complete. Make it personal. So sometimes we are given goals that aren't ours. Um, you need to be invested in it to be able to complete it. So it's good to find something in it that makes you want to do it. So bring that home to yourself, make that personal to you so that you have that investment and you want to get that done. It's good if your goals are prioritized. So again, focus on those things you need to get done first, those things that are urgent and important. Um, what we mean by proclaimed is to share. And research shows that if you share your goals with others, it helps you be more accountable. So others can help you stay on track to get your goals done. If you've ever had success with a New Year's resolution, chances are you've probably told somebody else what that resolution is and they have helped you stay on track. So that is what we mean by proclaimed, is having others hold us accountable. Um, and finally, possible. So again, with being able to get it done, being able to accomplish it, we want something that is achievable, that we can put out reasonable effort and get this task done. If our goals are too hard, it's discouraging and we'll give up on them. So this really helps us. Keeping these things in mind help us make sure our goals are able to be completed. And goals, of course, can be both personal or professional. So it could be work related goals or it could be goals for your home life. And of course, they can be short term goals or long term goals. So just keeping in mind how long you have to complete whatever your goal is, can help you make sure that you stay on track. If you have a notepad in front of you now, it might be good to jot down a goal, something you want to get accomplished that meets all of these requirements. And then after the call is over, share that goal with somebody else, so they can help keep you on track to accomplish that goal and get it done. I will take any questions you have, or if there's anything you'd like to just share in the chat, that would be good to do now. I probably talked way too fast, is that?
No, you did great. Are there any questions for Kelly? You're welcome to unmute yourself and just ask your question.